Hey everyone, welcome back to the Prairie Grown Reviews YouTube channel. We review books, games, movies, and TV shows. Today, we are back with the Phase 2 video of our Marvel Cinematic Universe reviews leading up to Wandavision. So, to start things off, Nathaniel, Iron Man 3, thoughts?
Well, honestly, I think I really enjoyed this movie. It was nice to see a different side of Tony that it was nice to see him develop, I guess, and it helped like flesh out the rest of his character as he changed throughout the three movies. I enjoyed watching all the suits in action and the final action scene, and I think the blowing up of all the suits at the end was symbolic of him moving on, and just overall was just a pretty good movie.
Well,
Austin?
as we know, the symbolic moving on doesn't last very long, but we'll get to that in just 1 second. Also, I'd like to applaud the Mandarin for the best performance in this movie. He's a fantastic villain who's not really a villain. He's neither scary nor anything else, to be quite honest with you, but he does a good job of
Funny.
portraying it. He's hilarious. That's about it. Like he's like a comedic actor who got cast for a scary role and pulled it off, but behind the scenes, he's totally useless. Like, if you've never seen that movie before, the first hour and a half, you're going to be like, ooh, this Mandarin's a bad guy. And then you meet him, you're like, what the heck just happened? But it's hilarious and it adds to the movie in a great way. It lowers those emotions down. It's perfectly timed. I really enjoyed that scene. Iron Man, per usual, he's, like Nathaniel said, you got the emotional completion type of thing, sort of filling out his character as a whole, which I thought was perfectly timed for the third and final movie in the series. So overall, this was a pretty good movie. Got some great action scenes and some fantastic character development.
Yeah, no, I'd have to agree with that. I just think this movie, it perfectly encapsulates like Iron Man's development in Iron Man 1, 2, and the Avengers. It shows how that guy who came out of the cave, his road to being the hero that Iron Man was always supposed to be. And I think a scene that really shows the hero that Iron Man is supposed to be and the person Tony's become is his speech to Pepper at the beginning about nothing's been the same since New York. He's like he's got to protect the one thing he can't live without because he's just a man in a can. Like Iron Man, he's just trying to be the best so he can keep protecting the world and protecting Pepper and all those he cares about.
Yep.
And I just think that Robert Downey Jr. gives a great performance. This film has some really great action scenes. Like there's a great scene with an airplane. The end is cool. So no, this is a pretty great movie that we gave an 8.7 out of 10. So now, moving on, Austin, thoughts on Thor: The Dark World?
I'm going to be honest. If we recorded this video 4 days ago and I didn't actually watch this movie, I just based it off what I remembered from the first time I watched it, I would have told you this was a bad movie, that it was boring, that not a lot happened, the characters weren't developed in the slightest. But then I watched it again, and it's not the same movie. The movie itself hasn't changed, but I don't even know how I had those thoughts. This movie is funny. Loki's fantastic. The action's pretty okay. We have a I would say a weak villain, to be quite honest with you, based on what we've seen from other movies. Not the greatest, but the movie limps its way to the finish line even with that, right? Loki and Thor make up for it. Not Thor's best movie of the series, but it's still good enough that it gets by in my book. Obviously, not my favorite movie of the Thor movies, but still better than I remembered it, to be quite honest with you.
Matt?
All right, sweet. So I guess the first thing, obviously, this is a sequel movie, and as a sequel, it doesn't quite live up as much as the first movie. So in the end, it was a bit slower compared to the first movie. Overall, though, it was still a pretty good movie. It was fun to watch. The Dark Elves were very interesting and cool as a species. It was nice to see them at the beginning of the movie, like pretty much get like wiped out completely, and they come back near the end. It was nice to see a villain like that. We don't usually get to see those types of villains usually. Um, there were a lot of good action scenes throughout the movie. Gotta say, Ripta Friga, man, she did not deserve to die that way, but you know, it is what it is. And overall, as Austin had said, Loki is amazing as usual.
Yep.
Masterminded like everything, and just was overall, yeah, it was enjoyable. If it's as a sequel movie, it was a pretty good movie.
Yeah, no, when we started this one, I was probably in a similar camp to Austin with not seeing it in a while and having this feeling that it was boring and I wasn't going to love it and it wasn't very good. Uh, upon watching it, it's pretty entertaining. Like we said, it's got some good action. Loki is comedically at his best or second best, either this or Avengers so far. He's pretty funny. He's got some great moments. Um, Perfectly encapsulated by their escape from Asgard, where Loki and Thor just get some great banter while they're escaping, and it's a very fun scene.
Yep.
Like Austin said, Malekith and the Dark Elves are not the most interesting foe we have seen, and they really aren't going to be even moving forward. They're pretty bland, but the rest, like the cast is funny. It's got some good action. It's got some pretty big stakes overall,
Yep.
and no, it cements itself as a pretty decent Marvel movie. So as a whole, we gave that one an 8.0 out of 10.
Oh, actually,
So
before we move on, I'm gonna double back and add one thing to my thoughts on this movie. Jane Foster, second best thing that happens to this movie. Honestly, I think her role in this is way more important and way better, both in the acting and the way it's written, than the first movie, in my personal opinion. I really enjoyed that. I thought she was a character that we could do quite a bit with, and it was really nice to sort of see her story developed a lot more than we saw in the first. Now you can move
that
on,
is true.
Sebastian.
I'd actually agree with that.
You have my
Okay,
blessing.
so moving on. We have Captain America, the Winter Soldier. So Nathaniel, I'll toss this one to you. What did you think?
Overall, it was a good movie. As a Captain America movie, they have the usual things that you would expect from those types of movies. Um, they brought back a lot of villains from the first movie, like some remnants of Hydra. Zola, creepy as ever, became a computer, the usual. They also like to mess with people's emotions by killing off Fury and then not killing off Fury, and then he disappeared at the end of the movie again. I don't know. Did he really exist? No one knows. I also really liked the choreograph, like the fights between the Winter Soldier and Cap. They had some really nice fighting. Like the first fight they had when Cap is in his like civilian clothes, pretty fun. And then like the final fight scene on top of like the flying, but like the giant ship thing. I forget what it's called, whatever.
Helicarrier?
But
The helicarrier.
Helicarrier,
Yep.
that's what it was. Yeah, that was a pretty good fight
Helicarrier.
too.
Yep.
But yeah, overall, it was still a pretty good movie.
Yep. I think I'd have to say this is going to be my favorite movie of Phase 2, Winter Soldier. We sort of get left with a pretty big plot hole at the middle-ish end of Captain America: First Avenger, with Bucky falling off the train, and I really like that. That's the direction this movie took. Right, we dive straight into his story. He's a very big part of this movie. Like Nathaniel said, the action is awesome, the characters fantastic, and I absolutely loved the elevator scene. Like, there's no better way to both encapsulate Captain America's character, show off his strength, and just kind of make fun of Hydra in the process, which, I mean, we all enjoyed for sure. So, and it was also, like Nathaniel said, really cool to see sort of a very old foe in Hydra revamped, recreated into a little bit of a different mold, but then shot out with the same intentions or the same goals. And obviously, Zola, not any less creepy in a computer. Enough said.
Yeah, I'd have to agree with both of you on this one. Like, I know for a lot of people this is their favorite Marvel movie, period, and I can see why. It's got some great espionage, spy, thriller type vibes to it. It's all
Yep.
about secrets and lies and who can you trust, and like it's about government corruption and all those good things. In my opinion, it probably has, at least up to this point, but maybe overall, the best hand-to-hand combat we have seen in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Perfectly shown by, as Austin said, the elevator scene. One of my favorite scenes in any of the Marvel movies. Just so fun to watch.
Yep.
And as Nat said, the first fight when like Cap was in his civilian clothes and like Bucky's got his knife, and, like just they're fighting together is awesome. I thought this movie also really shows how awesome Cap's shield is. He uses it in a variety of ways.
Yep.
Like he the way he ricochets it off things, and he knows that shield inside and out, exactly how it needs to work for him to get the job done. I also thought it had some great side characters that are built up for the future, and some that we already met. Black Widow, very prominent role in this film.
Yep.
You get to see a kind of there's a bit more to her, and you get to see that she just really she wants to do the right thing. And so when she finds out that Shield is actually Hydra, she's disappointed. She doesn't know what to do because she thought she was fighting for the good guys, and she finds out she wasn't necessarily fighting for the good guys.
Yep.
And then you also get introduced to Falcon, who is who has big roles later, but he has a great introduction here. He's funny. He provides some good action. He's like Steve in a lot of ways, in the sense of being a good guy who just wants to do the right thing, and he's like a soldier, and he just powers through. He's a great character. And Nick Fury and Maria Hill, they're also great characters that you love to watch. So overall, yeah, it's a very good movie that the three of us ended up giving a 9 out of 10. So moving on to my favorite of the phase, we have Guardians of the Galaxy. Now, I'm going to take this one before either of you talk about it, because as I said, it is my favorite of the phase and one of my favorites of the MCU. I think what makes this one so great is it's a comedy, and it's very different, especially if you look at Captain America, the Winter Soldier, and then this is your next movie, but they're the same universe, and they're characters that will come back and interact with some of these characters later.
Yep.
But no, it's a very different movie, for the straight fact that they had to market a raccoon and a tree as prominent or main characters, protagonists of the film. And the movie decides very smartly, in my opinion, to just take it for comedy. Do not take it too seriously. Do not dwell on too much. Do not make, like, yeah, it has big stakes, like a planet's nearly destroyed.
Yep.
But it doesn't dwell on too much. And I think a great scene that just shows the tone is the opening. Because the very, very opening, like before the credits, you get, or maybe right after the credits, you get Peter Quill as a kid, and his mom dies right in front of him of cancer, and then he's abducted by aliens. And then, so that's a pretty sad, depressing scene. And then on Morag, when he first arrives, it's pretty deep. It's like, it's dark music. It's like ominous. And then he pulls out his Walkman and he puts it on. And then he's like a guy in the shower singing to himself. He's just having a good old time. And those big, cheesy Guardians of the Galaxy title card shows up. And you know what this movie is going to be.
Yep.
And I just love every minute of it. I think it's got great action, great characters, and the comedy's on point. So now, after my long-winded rant, on to one of you two.
I'm gonna take it because
Awesome.
I got a point to make. So, Sebastian did just give you the entire rundown of the entire movie, and that it's a fantastic comedy. And I have to agree with that, but I think there's another part of this movie that is really, really underrated. The action is fantastic. We're in space, and we have a whole variety of different like species and characters that we've never seen before. But Marvel does a fantastic job of literally creating a prison full of different species. It's remarkable. The action on point throughout the movie. We see some great action scenes, both individually from all 5 of our characters, as well as a couple sort of, I don't know if I'm going too far here, but Avenger-esque with less power scenes where they're all working together with a common goal, right? Which obviously is way more entertaining than just one-on-one combat for the most part, right? So that was my favorite part of the movie. Very funny, but I love the action scenes we got.
Nat?
Sweet. I guess first things first. This movie compared to every other movie we've seen so far, tone completely different, atmosphere is completely different. It's more of a comedy. It's fun. It's great. I gotta say, as Austin said, the battle scenes and the fight scenes are really nice and creative because we are in space and there's lots of different like things people can use when you're in space. You know, a lot of different like aliens are fighting, a lot of different weapons. I think my favorite line in this movie has to be when Rocket's kicking the grass, being like, "You're making me beat up grass." Greatest thing ever. It sets the movie like perfectly. Also find really funny that Peter's Earth lingo is not quite accepted by everyone.
Yeah.
Drax is like super literal. It's pretty great. I don't know. It's like the perfect dichotomy between a sarcastic character and someone who's like, you know, word for word I will chop off your head means he will chop off your head.
Yep.
And I guess the final thing I really want to say is like, since we talked about combat a while ago, Yondu's needle, like floating thingy, magic needle thingy, coolest weapon I've ever seen in my life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I gotta agree with that one for sure.
When he takes down all those guys at once, that's just a great thing to see. That arrow is awesome.
So
No,
calm.
yeah, just some with a whistle. And I mean, what other Marvel movie are you going to get where you get a dance battle to end the film? Like,
Endgame. Spoiler
So-
alert. That's how Endgame ends.
spoiler alert. Yeah. So we gave that one a 9.1 out of 10. Now moving on to the sequel of my favorite from last phase, we move on to Avengers: Age of Ultron. So, Nat, Age of Ultron.
Well, as usual, since this is a sequel, it does suffer like the problems as all sequels do have. It was a bit slower compared to the first movie. It wasn't as quite enjoyable. It's still a good movie, don't get me wrong, but like it just didn't have that same attention. Like you didn't capture your attention as much as the first one.
Yeah.
I do gotta say, like a lot of characters were introduced in this movie. A lot of like prominent characters. The twins, definitely really cool characters that get introduced at the beginning as enemies, and then they become like they come onto your side by the end. It's pretty great to see. What's the Speedy guy? I like to call him the Speedy guy. Seeing him in
Quicksilver?
action was pretty great. Yes,
Pietro.
it was. Yes. Also, Wanda, pretty great. You know, telekinetic powers. I don't know, nothing can go wrong with that.
Nope.
I guess overall, it's nice to see also Ultron as a computer program being an enemy. Usually don't see that. Usually have like big, you know, muscly, burly guys as villains, but
Yep.
having a computer as a villain is something not many like stories, movies usually do. So it was nice seeing that. And I guess overall, it's a good movie, just not as good as the first one.
Yeah. I'd have to agree with that. My big selling point is if you personally are scared of computers taking over the world or technology going bad, this is not going to be a fun movie for you. The action's awesome. The plot line's fantastic. Ultron is potentially the smartest villain we've seen yet. And there's little semblances between him and Tony that make his character circle mesh so well because they have the same ideologies and the same thought process, but the way they get to their end goal is the real big difference of what separates Ultron from Tony, right? And that's pretty much the whole reason we have a city 2 miles in the air ready to drop and kill 7 billion people in 3 seconds flat, right? I also thought Ultron's minions were fantastic. Obviously, we've yet to see a minion army that's strong at all against the Avengers, but I still thought they did a little bit better than the Chitauri did in the first Avengers. So I appreciated that they weren't just ragdolls. So
Yeah. As most of you are aware, I loved the first Avengers, and honestly, I really love this one. For the full thing that I just really like the character interactions that come with these Avengers movies, and the Avengers movies overall are just, I really like team ups. I like this idea of a threat so big that these superheroes who save the world on their own need to be together to do this.
Yep.
And at the start, we see them cleaning up Hydra and looking for Loki's scepter, but it's just, I just like seeing the way they work off each other. We get some more backstory for some of them, like the big ones I'd say are again with Black Widow. Natch, he gets some more backstory. The Hulk gets some deeper and more prominent role in this one, and Hawkeye, Clint, you get to meet his family, you get to see his life outside of being an Avenger.
Yep.
Like Austin mentioned, the parallels between Ultron and Tony cannot be denied. With both of them having a very similar ideology, with like Tony, he wanted to create something to protect the world, to save the world. That's what Ultron was. But Ultron, he sees it as, yeah, to protect the world, humans need to evolve. I need to get them past where they are.
Yeah.
Whereas Tony's just trying to like protect life as it is now. Ultron says life needs to change.
Yeah.
And that's where their big difference is. Otherwise, they're very similar. And so it's very interesting to see that intellectual villain, as you guys said. This movie, I'd almost call this a setup movie. It sets up a lot. Civil War, Captain America Civil War, has some setup moments in this. Black Panther has some setup moments in this. Avengers Infinity War has some setup moments in this. And our very own show, WandaVision, that we're preparing for, has some setup in this. And so the new characters added, like Pietro and Wanda and Vision, great characters. I felt that this is a great movie. And if you like those character interactions, best scene for it is definitely them trying to lift Thor's hammer. It's a great scene to watch. It's quite
Absolutely.
entertaining. It's fun to just see them have fun and not be saving the world.
Yep.
Just like hanging out as friends.
I'm going to jump right in there before you give the rating. I'm going to clarify one thing. We do not in any way, shape, or form have any association with WandaVision. We're just going to drop some review videos on it. Thought I'd make that very prominent. Carry on, Sebastian. WandaVision is not our show. We're just going to watch it and then release some awesome content about what we thought for you guys to enjoy. So back to you, Sebastian, before Marvel tracks us down and copyrights us for 100 years. I got you.
Copyrights us, they'll send the Winter Soldier after us. No?
Yeah, that would be worse.
Okay.
That would be much worse.
And we gave Avengers Age of Ultron an 8.7 out of 10.
Moving on, we have Ant-Man, which I'll just give this one to Austin. Ant-Man.
Starring Sebastian Weir. Just kidding. For anybody who knows how tall Sebastian is, that'll make sense. For everybody else, it's going to go right over your head. And if you didn't get that one, go watch Guardians. Moving on. Ant-Man's a decent movie. Like it's off tempo. It's sort of like Guardians. It's sort of like everything else we've seen. It almost feels awkward without being awkward because it doesn't have, like, it almost doesn't fit with what we've seen from the rest of the universe. It's its own thing, and I really enjoyed that. Like, this movie could stand on its own 2 feet, wouldn't need connection from anything. You honestly don't need to watch almost any of the other movies outside from a little interaction between Ant-Man and Falcon, right? Between Sam and Scott. But like, other than that, this movie stands on its own 2 feet and it does a great job of being there. Ant-Man is both hilarious and he also has a little bit of a different background that we don't normally see from your Marvel superheroes type of thing, right? He's a criminal. Now, his intentions were right, but that doesn't change the deed that was done, right? So I think it's a very interesting add-on, and I thought the end was just full of absolutely fantastic action scenes, and it set up perfectly for Ant-Man and the Wasp. So
yeah,
Matt?
I guess my thoughts now. This movie was definitely a lot lighter compared to other movies. It's not as like funny as Guardians of the Galaxy. Like, it wasn't marketed as like a comedy, but it was a lot funnier than other Marvel movies like Iron Man or even Captain America.
Yep.
I gotta say, Scott as a protagonist is really interesting. As Austin did say, he was a criminal. He robbed a really big what I think it was a bank, right? Something like that.
yeah, he robbed the company he used to work for.
Something. Yeah.
So it was pretty great. He called it. He was a burglar, not a thief. But that's a detail for another day. I do enjoy how there are a bunch of funny scenes throughout this movie. Louise, definitely one of the better characters as a side character.
Yeah.
The typical friend that all people, like all characters, usually have. His storytelling methods are hilarious. Doesn't ever get to the point. Kind of like someone we know, but we won't point fingers for that. Besides that, the other funny scene has to be when Dr. Pym takes out the tank and they go flying through the research facility. I don't know. It was pretty funny. No one saw that. Or even when Thomas the Tank Engine flew out of the house at the final fight. That, or the giant ants. Can't forget about that. I don't know. Everyone's saying that was a nasty looking dog. It wasn't
It's a
a dog.
weird looking dog.
A very weird looking dog for sure. Overall, it's just a really enjoyable movie. It's, as Austin said, could stand alone if it wasn't connected to the Marvel Universe, but it was still really fun to watch.
I personally I think that this movie really is something special in the sense that, yeah, like you said, it could be on its own where some of them can't. It feels like it feels like a different perspective on this universe, like a more lived in ordinary person. Like, Scott's not, yeah, he's got a master's in electrical engineering, but he's not Tony Stark billionaire. He's not Steve Rogers super soldier. Like you said, he's just a criminal who got caught trying to basically Robin Hood his way in the world, and got sent to jail. But this movie also has has the shrinking gimmick, which you have seen probably in other movies, but it's not really a gimmick here. They use it really well. Like they said with Thomas, the tank engine, you've got the giant ant, you got the tank, and even just Scott himself, the way he shrinks and regrows. I never got bored of it. I always enjoyed watching the different ways that he would use the powers and he would grow things and shrink things. The best way I describe this movie is it's the comedy of either an Iron Man or Guardians with more the plot line of kind of almost a cat movie. It's more like the like a heist, espionage, that type of thing. But like the comedy is more like Guardians or Iron Man. And I think it works well as a blend of those two. And while it doesn't need to be connected, it sprinkles of details. Like the very beginning opens on the Triskelion that we see in Winter Soldier, the base of S.H.I.E.L.D. And we get to see Howard Stark and Peggy Carter. And then even later on where they mention how the Avengers might be too busy dropping cities to help. And yeah, so I think it has some great references. It's got some really interesting and neat action, and it's pretty funny overall. I highly enjoy it. And so we gave that one overall an 8.7 out of 10. And now for our phase score, if I can have a drum roll, please, from...
Doesn't work because my mic's like at my face, but I'm doing it, I promise.
Okay. We gave phase 2 an 8.7 out of 10. So for all of you keeping track, that is slightly better than last phase. Who knows how it would equal without the Incredible Hulk last phase? Maybe that one's a little higher, maybe not. But phase 2 improvement, has some really great movies. Overall, doesn't really have any duds as movies, so it was a fun time. I'm very much looking forward to phase 3, so I welcome you all to check out that video when that comes out. And now that we're basically wrapping up here, I'd like to say thank you for watching the video. If you like this, please subscribe and ring that bell for future notifications, and also like the video. And from all of us at the Prairie Grown Reviews team, see you next time.